I can only imagine playing board games with you would be competitive. Seriously. You can make, I mean, I don't know. You can make a competition out of just about anything. Is your family like that? Most of the time that's a.
Well, I've just been playing sports and stuff my entire life.
Yeah.
So that's why it's all a competition.
Yeah, everything's.
And my dad was an athlete and a Marine. So.
Oh, I didn't know your pops was a jarhead. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. And I say that with the most.
So he makes
affection.
fun of me when I talk about stuff at the gym. He's like, until you can do a pull-up with one hand,
Oh my
you can't do
Wow.
anything.
You're dead to me until you can do a pull up with one hand.
So are you there yet, Nora?
No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not gonna make that. You're listening to 54665, all things Viroqua, all things economic development, all things rural economic development. Today we have with us a very special guest, and I'm just gonna put it out there so I can get it out of the way. Laura Hrubes.
No.
Dang it! I knew I was off on that one, but that's why I asked. Laura Hrubes.
No, Luke, you're closer than most. It's
Okay.
Hrubes.
Hrubes. My gosh.
Why wouldn't you assume that that was the pronunciation?
But there's no. Is there an H on the end?
There is not an H. on the
Okay,
end,
so
no.
the H is imaginary.
It is.
Okay.
You
Well,
take it off the front where it's silent
right.
and put it on the end.
Is that a rule of grammar that I somehow missed?
Maybe a bohemian rule.
Okay. So that's Bohemian.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hrubes with an H. She was actually one of the pop-up shops this last year, the 2018, the Viroqua Baking Company, and we've got a lot of questions. I think this is this interview could go a lot of different directions. It could serve a lot of different purposes for us. But since I think I dominated the question line in the Mr. G segment.
You thought so?
I did. You were. I mean,
Why?
because he just kept jumping over and like making fun of you, and you were like so silent the whole
That's
time.
how he shows love.
I know it is. He does. He adores you. It's
I
so
know.
great. I was merely a talking head that day, and
I've never seen you laugh so hard at some of the burns either.
oh my gosh, he was just on fire. He was on fire. It was unbelievable.
You can dominate as much questioning as you want to. That's all right.
Well, thanks. Usually that's not. Caleb just laughs in the background. I can see him over there. And good luck shutting this down.
You know what, guys? I can take this from both of you if you both have a lot of questions.
Yeah. See?
Okay. Nora,
Dominate away.
Nora,
You
go
want
ahead.
me to start?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your background just a little bit, and when you started baking.
Well, I guess I've kind of always been a baker, but I've gotten more and more into it over the years. It definitely wasn't everything that I ever considered doing as a career. I went to college and got a degree in history and went to law school and kind of stumbled through that and was baking more and more and more the whole time. And it became more of a passion and a hobby and more of a larger part of my life over the years. And it started to be something where people were asking me to make cakes for birthdays and parties and then weddings. And so it just kind of grew organically from there.
So how does all of that translate into a business? How did that come about?
That's a great question, Nora. You and I had some wonderful discussions about that. It was just an amazing opportunity with the pop-up shop program, and it felt like I would be really foolish to pass that up. And it was an amazing opportunity. So I'm glad that I took the leap off the cliff to try to make that into a career for myself.
Do you have a JD? Did you finish law school?
I did not.
Okay.
It's obviously a 3-year program,
Yeah.
and I did about 2 years of that. And
Sure.
I've been on a break for about 20 years.
Oh, I hear that. I hear that music. I do indeed. And I think that is like that's one of those things that it's kind of universally applicable. Like a lot of people I've found who are entrepreneurs don't actually go to school for the thing or have an extensive background in the thing that they end up doing. You have a marketing degree? You have a
Marketing and communications.
Right, which is actually pretty much what you do, which is rare, I think.
Sort of, but the angle is completely different. I thought I was going to be doing when I left college, I was positive I was going to be doing marketing and press representation for musicians. That
Sure.
was what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
What kind of law did you want to practice?
I was pretty interested in environmental law.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then you realized there wasn't much money in it.
Yeah, that was a big part.
Yeah,
of it.
I hear that. That was definitely on the radar too. Where'd you do law school?
Michigan State.
Okay, cool. That's great. If you like Michigan State. So you've been. When did the pop-up shop start for you this year? Or this
past October.
This past October.
So it was October, November, December.
And we're almost like 4 or 5 months in now. What are some of the things that like you've learned in 4 or 5 months? I mean, even if you can just, and I know that we could talk all day about this specific question, but like 4 or 5 months, the expectations that you probably had when you walked into, I'm going to do this. This is something that I've been thinking about and I've been toying with since I was in law school in Michigan State, which is, go Big Ten. It's a great law school. I'm really trying hard not to burn it. I'm really trying.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's okay if you want to burn it.
That's okay. Anyway, when you go in and you've developed this idea in your head what it's going to mean to be in business, and then 5 months later, what can we extrapolate? Like, what are some of the takeaways?
I feel like there is a lot more of the paperwork and the, I guess, business side of it than I was maybe expecting.
Yeah.
You mean it's not fun?
It's not
all the time.
No, it's not all
It's not
frosting
fun.
cakes. It's not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's been definitely eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely challenged the limits of my time management skills.
Sure.
There's not a lot of sleep happening some days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does a typical day look like for you?
I get up at 2
AM.
some days earlier than that.
Thank you for clarifying that. Sometimes I get up at 2.
2 a.m., Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually about 2. Sometimes earlier if I have a really big day. But yeah, that's when I start my day.
So why 2? Like what happens at 2:00 for people that don't understand?
Because every single thing is made fresh that day.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing for orders, it's all happening before 8:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
How do you balance that with, children and a spouse and their schedules? How do you get the rest that you need in order to?
I live for naps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love naps. Pretty much every day I go home and I take a nap. In fact, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I brought a cot and a sleeping bag to the shop so that every now and then, if I have maybe, half an hour or 45 minutes, it's going to be spent sleeping.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, it's smart. Self-care is self-care, however you do it, even if it's napping in the back.
Right. Napping in a little
Oh my
dark
gosh.
room.
I gotta say, when you take on employees, it only gets worse.
Yeah.
Because then all the fires that you think you could put out by yourself, all of a sudden you have people like banging on the office door, so that nap time is not. It's not even a real thing.
That just goes away.
It's just it's just constantly washed over. But like talk a little bit about the beautiful struggle. I like to refer to it as, and for me, honestly, I feel like I get to cook when everything else that the business demands has been met.
Yeah.
Which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
It's so consuming, and I think that there's this perception. I know even with cooks that I employ, like there's a perception that you as a chef are in the kitchen all the time, and that's what it is, and it's frosting cakes and it's testing recipes, when 90% I think of what I do is manage a business.
Mm-hmm.
What is that coming to that reality like?
It's been kind of exciting because I think I went into this with maybe not that many preconceived notions. So it's been fun to see how it is shaping up and how it's playing out. I feel like I spend so much time dealing with customers and talking about, what they want or what they're looking for, and, trying to figure that out and schedule it. And that's so much more than I never even thought about that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of really fun.
Sure. What are the struggles?
Not sleeping.
Yeah.
Trying to be in about 3 places at once.
Yeah.
It's just me. So literally every single thing is, something that I'm trying to not only make, but get to where it needs to be, and also get my kids to where they need to be at the right time, which doesn't always happen. I would say that's probably the biggest struggle, is trying to manage the time.
Yeah. What about, as a small bakery where you're doing the bulk of your baking from home? What about all the licensing and all of the different things that go into making that a possibility? Because I'm sure there are people that are listening that, the cupcake business idea is not that unique. There are a lot of people that would like to do something like that from home. What does all of that look like?
Well, prior to April, I believe, of last year, I would not have been able to do that. But that was when the cookie bill legislation passed in Wisconsin, rather, and that allowed people to legally cook from home. There's a lot of rules that go along with that, so you have to follow, the rules explicitly. So you really don't need any licensing for a home kitchen in that scenario, as long as you're, doing everything completely on the up and up, which I am. If that was not the case, if I was in a commercial kitchen of my own, that would obviously be totally different. I would have to be licensed through the state. I would have to have, a lot of food management type licensing.
Where do people find that information? How did you find guidelines to
I
follow?
would recommend that if somebody's curious about that they get in touch with the health department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The $1 million question, right? Going into business, I think one of the things that I saw in hindsight is making sure that what I was doing was scalable. If a tour bus shows up in front of the cafe and they unload and there's 60 people, can I execute what I do for all 60 people and the regular customers too? And can I peel it back to be able to serve, a lunch for 15? What are some of the things in scalability when you're starting out? Like, we are going to data mine you right now for all the perceptions and intuitions that you've gained over 5 months as part of this project, which I think is really fun. You can provide a lot of insight. And I'm trying so hard to have realistic expectations right now, because I obviously can't accommodate that tour bus that rolls up in front. I've really had to prioritize my time, in that if I have a bunch of special orders, those are always going to come first. Sure.
If that means I show up with, 12 muffins and a cheesecake, well, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And, I think that's kind of exciting too. And I don't think that anybody has really minded.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, I feel like it's a little bit exclusive that, if you want something, you're going to have to be there pretty early, because chances are pretty good I'm not going to have it past 11 or 12.
That's awesome. And I think, too, it kind of underlines or underscores the fact that, there's stability in the model where what you're buying, the labor that you're putting into a piece that you're doing as a commission piece, all that is covered and accounted for.
Right.
There's no variable about, will this sell? Will I take this home?
Exactly.
And I think that just that understanding principle is really important to kind of highlight for listeners, that, anything that looks like a sure bet, try and move into that first, and then develop the model of scale based on those pieces. Because what we know keeps the lights on. Mm-hmm. I mean, frankly. Pregnant pause. This is the Tim Eddy portion of the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Tim Eddy is a good friend and radio DJ. Loves the pregnant pause.
I like the pregnant pause as well. There's time to think in there. There's time to.
Oh my gosh.
I think we should do like a poem or something.
You want a poem?
Yes,
I could
in
bang
honor
out.
of
Okay, give me a
Tim.
second, and I will bang out a haiku.
Should we have a little poetry slam?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go to a question, and then you can Tim Eddy the next one.
Got it.
As a haiku.
Do we get to pick
You
the
got
topic,
that?
Luke?
Go for it.
Make it about cake.
Cake?
Oh, yeah. Let's make it about cake.
Got
We
it.
have to make it relevant to the situation.
Exactly. All right.
Okay. And so speaking of cake, before we go on to the Tim Eddy segment, let's talk about some of your premium ingredients that you're using. You're using really lovely things when you're making these like high-end, beautiful cheesecakes and cakes and other things.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how you obtain all of these awesome ingredients, and then also like how are you determining your pricing structure based on that, and what advice would you give to somebody trying to put together a pricing structure?
Charge enough for everything. I am getting ingredients from lots of places, honestly. I order the vanilla from Amazon because they have really great vanilla at the best price that I found. I've been contacted by quite a few bakery supply companies, so I'm getting some things through big bulk suppliers now. But I'm trying to get as many things locally as possible. Like, honestly, I love Westby butter. I think they make the best butter. Their salty, good, wonderful butter is my favorite.
That's my jam too. I love that stuff.
Yeah. So I buy that like a case at a time, these massive, there's something really exciting about like walking out with that much butter.
Yeah. I love it that I go in there, like we buy a 40-pound block, I would say every 5 days and at the cafe and Steph, the manager, like she doesn't even like try and pick it up. She just points me to the walk-in cooler. And so I go in there and I pick up my block and I throw it on my shoulder. And it's always great because the people who are in there at the time are like, that's a lot of butter. What are you going to do with that? And I usually have something dumb, like, I don't know, butter sculpture, making a likeness of myself. But yeah, that's fun. I love that butter.
Yeah, that's wonderful butter. Yeah, I get a lot of fresh fruit right from the co-op because they have amazing fruit, and it's usually expensive. It's a premium, but I think that really matters. Yeah, so I kind of have my little round that I do every week to get my ingredients.
Yeah. And then how do you determine pricing based on all of these premium ingredients? How are you making sure that you're paying yourself and also covering your costs?
Right. Yeah. Well, I've kind of like struggled with that a little bit. I've figured out like the cost of everything, by the teaspoon, by the cup, whatever. So I know what I'm spending on everything that I'm making, right down to basically the penny.
Sure.
So, based on that, I can kind of like, turn around and charge what I need to charge.
What do you pay yourself?
Not enough.
That's always the tough question.
That's the toughest part, I think.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like, just getting started, I don't know that I'm necessarily in a position that I can do that as much as I would like to at this point. So.
Not quite yet anyway.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, are you ready?
You look like you're done. You've been scribbling.
Yeah, I know.
That's the look of uncertainty.
Oh, no. This is good. Just keep talking. Just give me one second. I want to work.
So we'll talk about the other thing that I think is so special about what you're able to do as your social media marketing. You've really become kind of an influencer in social media. I think that's fair enough to say, particularly locally. Talk about your social media strategy and your marketing strategy.
How do you
do what you do?
Had one. I've talked to some people about that have wonderful ideas about how often I should be posting or whether I should be doing stories or this or that. And I don't know. It's hard to find enough time to actively commit to something like that. For me, I'm always looking for something that makes me laugh. Like if something is quirky and weird and funny, then it's probably going to catch my attention. And I guess I'm kind of trying to do the same with mine. I love taking pictures, so that's a big part of it. If I can come up with an image of something that's, kind of fun or enticing or compelling, that's probably my biggest strategy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's been
just
fun.
the beautiful shots of your baked goods. You know, I'm pretty sure that probably brings people into the shop pretty.
You know, I honestly didn't know when I started doing that if anybody was even looking. Was anybody even seeing what I was doing? And it's amazing. So many people that come into my shop are like, oh my gosh, I just saw this picture. Do you have that? Or can I get that? And people have come in with printed out pictures of, you know, cakes that I've made, or, you know, something poetic that I tried to write about, you know, blueberries or.
That's cool. That's when you know that you're an influencer.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
good.
that's been a really, really fun part of this, is seeing that develop.
Yeah. What advice would you give for other people who are starting their businesses and they're trying to develop a social media strategy?
Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, put it out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to pretend to, you know, necessarily be something that you're not.
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
Yeah. Right on. Good.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This one.
I've waited a long time to say a haiku about cake.
This is. I'm gonna warn readers. This is a little bit sensuous.
Are you kidding me?
No, we're talking about cake, girl. Like you don't like cake.
Cake
Come on.
should be a sensual experience. It should be like, it should encompass all your senses, full sensory.
Just so that Caleb can be ready to bleep stuff out.
No. This is family friendly.
Okay. Roll.
Okay, let's have it.
Ready? Cake. We love good cake. On my fingers, lips, my mouth.
I'm sorry.
Tasting butter love. That's your morning haiku on 54665.
And we love you, Tim Eddy.
That was good.
I think I kind of need a moment.
Oh boy.
Luke, can I take that home with
You
me?
can have it.
Oh no. It's
Yeah, right.
souvenirs
It's
from
souvenir.
the 54665.
Exactly.
Oh man.
There it is. Butter love.
Butter love.
Yeah.
Tasting butter love.
Tasting butter. There you go. Souvenir for the day.
Thank you, Luke. I might frame that.
This is why, that sharp creativity thing, like sitting there. There was one time on Tim Eddy's radio show where I created a haiku for Tim Eddy and delivered it, and it was about the night market.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
It was.
We need to get on there again. It's been a while.
It has been. I did some radio work with him around the holidays, which is really fun. So Tim Eddy obviously is one of my role models. Laura, who are your role models?
Oh. You know, that's a great question, Luke, and probably something that I should have considered a little more. You know, the first time that I got really, really like deeply interested in cooking and food was in college. I was literally at a point in my life where I was eating SpaghettiOs out of the can and like just, you know.
Yes.
Maybe I
mean,
still
I've
am,
never
Nora.
done
Yeah, exactly.
And I got my first job in the kitchen of a restaurant, and I feel like that was a pretty life-changing experience. I went from, you know, the SpaghettiOs to like the most beautiful, gorgeous food of the 90s.
Sure.
You know, quiches and
Yeah.
creme brulee. And it was really exciting. So that was a big game changer for me.
Sure.
It really totally changed the whole way that I was thinking about food and, you know, what I wanted to be eating. And that place was probably a huge role model for me. I worked there a lot in college. And yeah, it was pretty exciting.
You know, one of the things when I talk with other chefs, like I think all the modern cooking technique that can be employed, or, you know, new American cuisine, whatever that means, most of the time when I cook, or when a lot of the chefs that I consider to be colleagues cook, we're cooking from a memory, a place of memory, right? So I'm trying to recreate that so that other people can have that sensory experience, and then it becomes part of their memory too. Because I think that's kind of what births like legend, so to speak, right? In your mind, or in diners' minds. What memories do you cook from?
I cook a lot from my grandmother's cooking.
Sure.
You know, she didn't make really exotic things, but she made really simple things really well. She made lemon meringue pie that was just like bursting with fresh lemon flavor, and it was just intense.
That's my favorite.
Is it?
Oh, me
Really?
too. I just love
Anything
it.
citrus.
She made this blueberry cake, which is like what I think about every time I make muffins, and I just am looking for that taste, that simple, just intense flavor. That's just, that memory. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Do you find as you become more refined in your practice, it's easier to tap that? Like, because sometimes I think the struggle specifically is like you're constantly cooking to that expectation of what it was. And I know personally, like sometimes when I actually eat food that we've prepared at the cafe, or if you ever see me having a dining experience in my own restaurant, which is rare. I think in the almost 6 years we've owned it, I've done it like maybe 4 times. And I sit and I eat and I'm like, holy smokes, this is really good. Which is great, right? What a like, oh, thank goodness, it's amazing. I really like the way, yeah, exactly. I really like the way this tastes. And I like the vibe, and it's intimidating and it's hard to do. What that you make is your favorite? What meets the expectations more times than not?
You know, I make this chocolate cake, which is just so intensely like rich and chocolatey and moist. And I feel like every time I make that, there's just joy in that cake.
Sure.
It makes people happy, and it's got this light frosting, and but I make a berry sauce to go with it, and it's every time.
That sounds awesome.
You know, it's a hard thing, like you said, to match that expectation, because there's times where I'm just trying to get as much done as I possibly can, and I feel like in my ideal world I would have enough time to be like, there's some kind of like a huge transfer of energy that you're putting into it. And there's like magic going into this thing. And sometimes that's hard, to find the time to do that. And I think that's where that experience of knowing how to achieve what you're trying to achieve comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you trying to achieve?
I'm trying to achieve, those food memories. I want to make people happy. I want them to open the box and just be hit with the smell of like, the intensity of these fresh, beautiful ingredients and fruits and berries and vanilla. And I want that. And then I want them to eat it and just like have a moment where they go, oh my God, wow. That's what I'm looking for.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
The bar is high.
Yeah, but that's perfect. That's exactly what works. And I think that
I want them to write haikus like this when they eat my cake.
Yes. I think that's so much a part of it. To cook food is an amazing thing. Like, and you're right. Was your grandmother the Bohemian one?
No.
Okay.
My no.
So to cook food, it's a necessity, but like to create an experience through that, to have it be when you open the box and you get the aromas of the chocolate or the cocoa, or that little tinge of fruit that's there, and this time of year smells so exotic and different because all of our senses are attuned to comfortable things right now because it's cold. We're literally starved for freshness, and I think that piece of trying to create that experience and recreate that for people is essential to why your business does as well as it does.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So really quickly before we wrap things up, what are a couple of the things that you've learned since being in business and being open on, an active main street in a small town? What are a couple of things that you learned that were surprising to you, or a couple of pieces of advice for people that are listening from home or listening at the gym and hoping they can open up their business?
I think the hardest thing for me is I still struggle with this. It's so hard to say no. Don't overcommit yourself because, there's only so many hours in a day. There's going to be a point where it's like, okay, I can't do anymore.
Right.
Don't be afraid to hit that point and say no, that you can't do something. The whole experience has just like exceeded my expectations in a way that I never could have imagined. So I feel like I'm still learning, Nora. I'm still learning how to balance.
We're all
that.
still learning.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
But is there anything that was really shocking to you or surprising at all? Like something that you never anticipated about business ownership that is either a struggle or something that's really been empowering or amazing?
How much fun it has been. How many new friends I've made. How supportive my community has been. That's probably the biggest, most wonderful, surprising, beautiful thing that's happened that I really appreciate more than anything. And, I didn't know what to expect. I had no expectations or idea of what to anticipate opening. And yeah, I think it was a really hard thing to put myself in that place and try it, knowing that I very well could fall on my face and fail. So I guess I would say that would be my advice. Don't be afraid to try something. Because even if you do fail, you're going to learn a lot in the process and probably have some fun. And you might be surprised. People might show up and be lined up on a Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, I
Isn't
love
that
that.
overwhelming?
It is so
Oh, God, what have I done? We had the experience early on in owning the cafe, and I think it's such a beautiful story. We were cooking dinner service on a Saturday night, and a group of nuns came in. And, it was interesting, just like, oh, wow, check it out, the group of nuns out there. And I wrote them a little note. And I am not, for listeners, I am not, I'm definitely a spiritual person, not overtly religious, so to speak, but I wrote them a note and I said that the intention of this restaurant is to glorify this place and tell a story for the people that couldn't tell it for themselves. And I would appreciate it if they could keep this place in their prayers, because I believe in that, good energy equals good food. And I sent the note out, and they assured me that they would. Which is great.
I love that.
Right. But when that happened, literally, like you were talking about, the restaurant filled. And I mean like filled instantly. And my sous chef at the time, we had a line outside, and then like we kept hearing the reports like the wait list is at 1 hour. The wait list is at an hour and a half. The wait list is at 2 hours. The entire alley, like we peeked out on the side of the alley, and it was full of people just camping. And my sous chef is like, turn it off. Ask them to turn it off. Somebody get the Marilyn Manson or the Rob Zombie or something. Make it stop.
That might make them stay, depending on the audience.
Exactly.
I would be jamming.
Yeah, right. No, it's just like, this is too much. So, it is. It's one of those feelings when you see that and you see what you've created through intention and purpose and beauty. It hits you right in the sweet spot. And it kind of makes, at least in my opinion, all the dirty work worth it.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
There's definitely a moment there where it's like, wow, thank you. I have so much gratitude in my heart.
Yeah.
People wanting to eat the things that I make.
Well, you've been listening to the 54665, all things rural economic development, all things small towns, and all things Viroqua. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.